up every morning with drive. Been on the grind, know I had to survive. We had to win. Started from the dirt and the rubble. I had to be the needle that was popping your bubble.
Hello and welcome into the Rookie Prospect Profile Series. This is a Zilla Fantasy Elite production. Today we're going to be looking at wide receiver Ryan Flournoy within the rookie wide receiver machine learning models. Can Ryan Flournoy go from late 6th round draft pick and find himself into your fantasy lineups at some point during his career? Don't miss out on the insights from our advanced algorithms. Get the answers right now. Ryan Flournoy was drafted number 216 overall at the end of the 6th round by the Dallas Cowboys. Comes in at 6'2", 205 pounds. Very explosive guy, 39.5-inch vertical, 132 in the broad jump. So really, more explosive than Xavier Legette, right up there with Xavier Worthy in terms of his explosiveness. Played college football, though, for Central Missouri Mules, Iowa Western Reavers, and the Southeast Missouri State Redhawks. So small school guy. It's probably why he was a late round draft pick. Very, very athletic. He did run a 4.44 in the 40-yard dash as well. He's got 10 and 1/8 inch hands, which we know is important in the wide receiver models. So can this guy find himself onto your fantasy rosters? Dallas, they got Brandon Cooks as the number 2 guy there. Didn't have that good of a year last year. And then behind him, it's pretty much Jalen Tolbert and no one. So this guy could carve out a role right away. Let's go take a peek at his year 1 prospects. And we see here, maybe as expected from a 6th round draft pick, that was a small school receiver, about 3.5 fantasy points per game in his rookie season, maximum of 8.75. In this particular case, 41st ranked minimum output is the worst in the entire class. And then the maximum at 26 is obviously getting towards the middle half. So it's kind of saying he's got a low floor, but he does have a little bit higher of a ceiling just based off of probably those athletic metrics that he's got going on, provide a little bit higher ceiling. So let's go look at 3.5 in that 8.75 range for his rookie season. Who was doing that? All these players are in between 3.3 and 3.6 fantasy points per game during their rookie season. Starting from the bottom, Chester Rogers, Alexander Hollins, Isaiah Wright, Devin Duvernay, Jake Bobo, Josh Reynolds, Jerome Peak, Xavier Gibson, Ricardo Lewis, Josh Boyce, Devin Smith, Jalen Hyatt, Amir Smith-Marset, Jeff Janis, Javon Wims, James Washington. Not a super good list there. Nobody really fantasy relevant at any point other than maybe Devin Duvernay getting some spot starts here. Josh Reynolds having some DFS love, perhaps, maybe making a lineup once or twice. Really uninspiring list there. Let's go look at the 8.75 range. Who do we have in wide receiver history in their first season in that particular range? So if he does hit the ceiling, which I said, kind of based on the situation there in Dallas, I could see him getting some playing time and maybe being a little bit above that median prediction. But the upper range of prediction, Wan'Dale Robinson, Kenny Golladay, Darius Jennings, Dante Pettis, Rashad Bateman, Will Fuller, Michael Wilson, Jackson Smith and Jigba, and DeAndre Hopkins, all between 8.6 and 8.9 fantasy points per game. So we got some pretty interesting names there in that ceiling range of outcomes for him. If he ends up hitting in that range of 8 fantasy points per game, I would definitely be interested in buying this guy based on some of these values. But we'll see. Small school guy, I can't imagine that he's going to break out in that sense, but you never know. Let's go look at his year 2 results. Do we got anything improving there? And really pretty much stayed the same, maybe a little bit worse in the median outcome here, but rank again 40, maximum 34 in the ranks. Mean and median rank 35 at 3.5. Yet again, let's go take a peek at who was in that range during their second season. All these guys in between 3.25 and 3.7 fantasy points per game in their second season. We have David Bell, Chris Harper, Jalen Tolbert, his teammate. He did that last year. Kyle Phillips, Leonte Carew, Marcel Aitman, Shee Smith, Treylon Burks, Vincent Smith, and Kenbrell Tompkins. Again, not a bunch of people that you would want to be putting into your fantasy rosters or fantasy lineups here. That maximum 9.28, what does that look like? We got all these people in between 8.88, which is Wan'Dale Robinson again. We saw him last year, or in the rookie end. We also have James Washington, which I believe we saw in the rookie one for the median. Travis Fulgham, Rashad Bateman, which we saw in the maximum output. Marquez Callaway, Alan Lazard, KJ Osborne, Preston Williams, JJ Nelson. So that's if he reaches his maximum output there of 9.28. All those guys in between 8.88 and 9.5 fantasy points per game. Not exactly great. Let's go into year 3, see if we get a little bit of a breakout in some of the later years. And we do see a little bit of a bump up here to 4.5 range. He's ranked 25th overall in the mean and median. And again, he's got more of that profile where he's got a really low floor, minimum output, almost a negative fantasy point per game at rank 40. And then his maximum output at 14.46 is the 18th best in the class. So this is a guy, you may want to stash him on your taxi squad. I think this is a guy that you could get on there with his physical tools. Being a small school guy, could take him a year or two to kind of get acclimated. But if he breaks out, he could be pretty solid here. Let's go look at those particular spots. 4.2 to 5 range, and then the almost 14.5 fantasy points per game range in the 3rd season. I'm assuming we're going to see some pretty good names in that end. So in the median range of outcomes, all these players are in between 4.1 and 4.7 fantasy points per game. Nick Williams, we see Josh Reynolds again, Jason Moore, Paul Richardson, Desmond Patton, Aaron Dobson, Stedman Bailey, Tajay Sharp, Kendall Hinton, Quentin Patton, and Laquan Treadwell. Median range of outcome for this guy, if he just goes anywhere to any NFL team, is probably looking in this particular range in year 3. But if he can produce, if he can learn the system, if he's in an area where he's going to get some opportunity on the field and he can develop his game, maybe he sees this maximum output at 14.46. I'll just say in the last 11 draft classes, this would be inside the top 25 year 3 seasons of the last 11 draft classes, which includes 237 overall wide receivers. So just below that would have been DK Metcalf at 14.37. Just above that, Will Fuller at 15.2. Next couple above that, Hunter Renfrow, 15.24, Devontae Adams, 15.3, Kenny Golladay, 15.5. Just below DK Metcalf, Jarvis Landry, 14.3, Devonta Smith, 14.23, Steph Diggs, 14.2, and Jalen Waddle, 14.19. So some really good names there if he hits his maximum output. Hey, we saw year 3 breakouts, perhaps, see that ranking anyway go up and show more of the low floor, high ceiling aspect, which is what we want out of these late round picks. We don't want to see high floor, low ceiling. No thanks. Just leave those guys rot away on the waiver wires. Somebody that's got a low floor and a high ceiling, I'm a little bit more interested in Dynasty, especially if you're not paying anything. But unfortunately, we see here in year 4, he does take a step backwards in the mean and median, but that maximum still ranked number 22. He's got the worst minimum in the class. Again, one of these guys who looks like low floor, high ceiling. He could be somebody that you're interested in. The maximum output at 11.53 does look like there's a very small amount of predictions that went there. You can see a huge gap in between the max at 11.53 and then the next bar over there, which is probably somewhere just above 9. So that's probably why his max rank output is up there. But again, machine learning model says if this guy, everything rolls in his direction, he could be, one of the top half or close to the top half of players in this particular class in terms of ceiling. All right, year 4, let's go look 3.5 range for fantasy point output in year 4. Who did that? Assuming it's not going to be a very good list of players. We have a couple guys in between 3.1 and 3.7 fantasy points per game. DeAnthony Thomas, Malik Turner, Laquan Treadwell, N'Keal Harry, Michael Campanaro, and Khalif Raymond. Those are the guys right in that median range. The maximum output of 11.53. We get some good names in there. This would be a top 40-ish in the last 11 draft classes, and that's out of 182 total wide receivers in the last 11 draft classes. So we got T. Higgins at 11.47, Russell Gage 11.64, Mecole Hardman actually hit 11.73. A little bit below that, Marquise Lee 11.2, Deontay Johnson 10.63, Kenny Stills at 10.5. That's kind of the range of oh, excuse me, we're looking at 11.53. Yeah, a little bit higher. Adam Humphries, 11.8. Will Fuller, 12.2. Christian Kirk, 12.21. Keenan Allen and DeAndre Hopkins both at 12.3 in their 4th season. Maybe that's a little bit more in that range of 11.5 there for Mr. Ryan Flournoy. I don't absolutely hate this particular profile. It's telling me this guy's probably not going to be good, but if he does get things to go his way, he does have a potential to be actual fantasy relevant. He's got a low floor, but he's got a really high ceiling, probably based on those physical attributes. So not a guy I'm necessarily going to shy away from. I'm probably not going to have him on a lot of squads, but he's going to be one of those guys on Sleeper that you say, hey, give me some updates on this guy. If I start hearing some rumblings that this guy's dominating camp or he's really progressing well, that might be a signal for me, hey, get this guy in my squad before the taxi squad locks. I'll get him in there and see what happens in year 1. He does have opportunities there in Dallas behind Brandon Cooks. There's really nobody, as we saw with Jalen Tolbert, was basically the number 3 option in Dallas, and he was in the 3 fantasy point per game range, like his median output for Ryan Flournoy in year 2. So interesting profile. Somebody I'm actually interested in here, despite the late draft capital. I think he could end up producing. All right, that's going to do it for today's rookie prospect profile on Ryan Flournoy. This was presented by Zilla Fantasy Elite. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.